Howdy ho! Well, we're back on the homestead. It's been about a week or so, or maybe even 2 weeks. I got pissed off at my truck back here at the GMC, and I had to walk away from it for a little bit because I made a really dumb mistake, and it cost me a ridiculous amount of time to fix it. So what had happened is I got almost done. You know, I had the power steering pump installed and the pulley installed, and I was getting ready to put the spark plugs and the distributor cap on it when I realized, oh, I better finish up the bottom end. And I remember there's two brackets, two support braces that connect the motor mounts to the bell housing cover, and I hadn't installed those yet. And so I was like, oh, okay, that's because they were still on this block right here. They're still just hanging out on the old motor mounts. So I was like, okay, no problem. I'll just take them off real quick and transfer them over. Well, I go to transfer them over, and I found out that that the motor mount has another little bracket spacer behind it, and the one that came on my block did not have provisions for the support braces. So at that point I got really frustrated because knew I was in for a mess to clean up. And so I just walked away from the truck, didn't touch it for a week, went and did other shit, tried to make a little bit of money. And I finally came back to it last night and changed both of the motor mount brackets. So I had to lift the engine back up, and pissed me off. It just pissed me off. It took me 4 fucking hours. 4 fucking hours to change out 2 upper motor mount brackets. And this is an operation that would have literally taken about 5 minutes on the engine stand. If that. So I was just cursing myself the whole time because it was such a bitch. Every single fucking bolt I had to fight and use a different tool to get out. You know, and it just sat there and fought it and fought it and fought it. But I finally won. Finally got the stupid motor mounts in. Finally got the stupid support braces installed and torqued. So now I'm basically about where I would have been a week and a half ago, or whatever. 10 days, 7 days. I'm not. Who's counting anyway? But anyway, you know, there she is. So next is going to be, I think, spark plugs. I'm going to do my spark plugs next. And start connecting ignition parts and all that good stuff together. And then I'm going to install the water pump. I got to go underneath and install the drive axle. The U-joint is just chilling right here, as well as our painted skid plate. The kid had some fun with the spray paint can. And hook up our heater hose to the radiator and just kind of get it put back together. It's possible that I could have this thing fired up tonight. I don't know if I'm that ambitious, but it is possible. The potential is there. It is hours away from being finished. Provided I don't run into any big surprises, you know. I'm not expecting any big surprises. This engine drove into this pole barn in another truck. I yanked it out and put it in here. I have no reason to believe that it shouldn't continue to run. It's literally the same engine. There's a few tiny differences, as I discovered, like with the motor mounts, but I think that's not really the engine, that's just a bracket. And I think that's more because the truck that this engine came out of was lighter truck than this truck is. So I think those braces are there just because it's an 8,600 pound truck. But so to keep myself busy, I started up on another little project here. This is a customer's vehicle. This is a 2005 Chrysler Pacifica, which I dubbed the Chrysis. And the Chrysis here has had power steering issues, which is probably a really, really common issue on 2003 to 2006-ish, 8-ish, probably I don't really know. You know, that era, the 2000s era of Pacificas and also town and country minivans. So they're kind of the same. They've got the 3.5 liter V6, and the engine itself has got no problems or anything like that, but the power steering system started having issues. I was first brought this vehicle because the power steering pump had failed and caused damage to the serpentine belt, and that needed to be replaced. Also took out a tensioner as well. So I replaced all that stuff, and about a week later the customer called me back and she stated that it was now leaking fluid. So I looked once again, checked under the vehicle, and I could see that the boot was completely torn on the inner tie rod. And on these Pacificas and town and countries, the inner tie rods come as an assembly, as you can see here. This is the rack and pinion assembly from that vehicle, which I've removed, and you can see that the boot has totally torn here, and it was from here or somewhere around there that it was spewing out fluid. Now I couldn't actually detect the exact location of the leak. I didn't actually witness it. It only happened at intermittent times, and probably when it was really hot and under high pressure. So I never actually did find the leak, but I suspect that it's the seals on this thing, because I did a little bit of research and found that somewhere in the 2000s, Chrysler Corporation decided it'd be a good idea to start using transmission fluid in the power steering system. I didn't get a memo. So the first time I used just, regular, power steering fluid that you can get at any auto parts store. So probably not a good idea. Within a couple of weeks, the oil smelled burnt again, and that was what had caused the previous pump to fail. And so we looked into it again. She did drive it for a couple more weeks after we discovered that leak. I told her, to take it easy and that it might fail. So when she finally could bring it in, she did, and now it's here. And I've removed that thing, and I'm just simply going to replace the whole thing. Everything. So there's really no point. You can try to rebuild it, but I'll just get the core charge back. I've got another one in the mail. It'll be here hopefully sometime tomorrow, and I can get that changed out. I have been now using ATF +4 is what you want to put in Chrysler power steering systems. Now I don't know how long they did that, but for the 2000s, these early 2000s Pacificas, mid 2000s Pacificas, you want to put ATF +4, or if you're going to get power steering fluid, you got to get the Mopar power steering fluid. It's $18 a bottle, so you don't need a whole lot. But if you're going to flush the whole system like I am, that could get pretty pricey. So in order to save my customers some money, I'm using the ATF +4, which, according to Chrysler, is acceptable. So that's what we're doing, flushing it all out. And in addition to that, this is our return line right here, this guy. And what I plan to do is cut this hose and install an inline oil filter, if I can find one small enough. I honestly don't know where else to put it. The technical service bulletin recommends that in the event that you do replace the rack and pinion system because of contamination, which is essentially what's happened, that you should probably go ahead and install an inline oil filter. So, but there's no parts or alternative parts or anything, so you just kind of have to put one inline yourself. Just get a generic oil filter and install it inline. So I was going to do it right before it entered the reservoir again, just because it's easy to service and replace right there. And it should still do the trick. But other than that, I think this is a good vehicle. Other complaints that people have about these is the subframe rots. But fortunately, somebody hit a deer or something in this one, and it needed a whole bunch of body work. And the dude replaced the subframe. The subframe looks brand new. So no subframe rot on this one. It's got about 150,000 miles, and I would expect it to at least get another 100,000 miles before it's done. So yeah, so that's what we've been up to. I'm going to start wrenching on the truck and see how far I can get with that. Since I'm waiting for parts on this guy here, I will do what I can. My Chrysis needs an alternator. The check engine light came on about a week ago, and that's the first time that's ever happened. And it actually did throw some codes, 12 and 41, which 12 means open or closed, short circuit, open or short circuit to the ECU. That's all it means. So, basically loss of DC voltage, essentially, is what that means. Could be an open, but it could be a short circuit too. I still don't know, but code 41 means problem with the alternator field circuits, which generally speaking points to the voltage regulator or the diode in the alternator. So I pretty much just have to get a new alternator now, because my voltage regulator is actually integrated in the ECU itself. So there's really no way to practically replace it. You literally have to solder one into the board in the ECU. So you're better off just getting a refurbished ECU if that's the case. But I talked to a mechanic friend of mine, and he kind of told me that if it was the ECU that had failed, in fact, that it would be, misfiring and doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and it wouldn't run as good as it runs, because it still fires right up, still drives just fine. But I noticed today that when I was going any faster than 55, my voltage would drop down to about 10 volts. So it basically wasn't charging, and I was running off the battery when I was on the highway. So really not a good situation. So I'm just kind of limping along the Dodge for right now. It's my daily workhorse. It's the only vehicle I have right now, and I sure hope I can keep it running for a couple days, because I'm gonna have to be buying an alternator. So yep, that's where we're at. But hey, if I can get the old GMC running first, maybe that'll be on the road faster than the Dodge. I don't have to spend any more money on the truck itself, just the damn taxes to drive the truck on the road. Anyhow, y'all have a good day, and I'll catch you in the next segment. Peace.